I'm talking about the movie North by Northwest by Alfred Hitchcock. And I have to say that there are some really big plot, at least one, there's at least one huge plot hole in this film. And it's actually very fundamental. You know, you got these bad guys. You got Roger Thornhill, played by Cary Grant. Now, it's a case of mistaken identity, of course. And, well, of course, first they rather stupidly think that he's George Kaplan. Well, even there, they don't seem to be worrying about him being armed. That's already a bit surprising at the beginning, because obviously, because as it later turns out, they think he's a government spy, or at least backed by the U.S. government. That's what they seem to be thinking. Well, anyway, so there's this case of mistaken identity, and somehow he gets away. Well, of course, the fact is, now he got away and everything. He escaped. He saved his life. Now, the fact is, of course, as we later learn, the bad guys think that Roger Thornhill is George Kaplan. And Roger Kaplan would be associated with the U.S. government, right? Or he would even be in the FBI, right? That's what they seem to be thinking, that he's working for the U.S. government. Well, and such a person would be very much. They would have to fear him, clearly, right? Someone with the whole FBI, U.S. government behind him. But nevertheless, they treat him as if he is completely weak. They treat him like he's a weak amateur all the time. All their actions seem to be based on the assumption that he's just a weak amateur. And especially this one thing when they through Eve Candle, he tries to make an appointment with George Kaplan once he's in Chicago, right? He tries to make that appointment. And, well, they send him to this field where they try to poison him from an airplane, right? But why do the bad guys think that he would show up there? What would he be looking for? He can't be looking for George Kaplan, because the bad guys obviously assume that he is George Kaplan. Who would he be looking for? What would be his motivation to go to show up at this lonely field? And alone, all by himself. Right? He certainly can't be with George Kaplan. That would be him. So who else would he be wanting to meet there? The bad guys, in order to be killed? Well, that's pretty unprofessional. And why is he unarmed and everything? So really, the bad guys, all their actions seem to assume that he's weak, which is true, of course, which is true. But it's still a gigantic plot hole, because their actions only make sense if they for some reason think he's a government spy. If they know that he is the weak amateur that he really is, at that moment he would be irrelevant for them. Completely irrelevant. And I would say that this is a typical case of where a story, a plot is being twisted so it fits the needs of the makers. And it's done actually quite masterfully, because we know that he is he's a weak amateur at this point, and we sympathize with him. And we don't really know what the bad guys want. That's a mystery at that point. So story-wise, it works pretty well. But if you think about it, it's a huge plot hole. And then after he actually does start working for the FBI, at that point, now the baddies don't find him weak anymore. And they seem to respect him and seem to see him as a serious partner for negotiations and as a force to be reckoned with. That's in Rapid Falls, North Dakota, right? At that point, where they meet at this restaurant, at that point the bad guy seems to find him, to consider him a force to be reckoned with, and formidable. And he's taking him seriously for the first time. But why not before? Why not at the other meetings? Well, because actually, of course, he is now not weak anymore, because he is in fact backed by the FBI. Now it's actually true. But the psychological thing is, all the time we know that he's weak, and this Hitchcock exploits pretty masterfully, because we can sympathize with him. Only story-wise, it is absurd. And I have to say that this film has an absurd plot. It's a good film, though. It's very pleasant to watch. But if you think about the plot of North by Northwest, well, at least I have to come to the conclusion that it's absurd. All right.
That was it for today.